Hey folks, how's it going? Unexpectedly live today. Just going to adjust my camera here. And I just wanted to share a blog that I recently released. Unexpectedly live today. Oh, hopefully there's not a bit of a sound echo there. I forgot to hit the mute button there. Anyhow, I wanted to talk a little bit about a blog I just released today and give you guys a heads up on what's happening live in the next few weeks. I've had a bit of some changes of plans, essentially, just with, courses coming up. Spring is one of our busiest times of year. And so I'm going to actually have to back out of my live stream commitment this Friday, next Wednesday, and next Friday as well, because we're going to be teaching a permaculture design course. And so I just wanted my channel to be aware of that, so that if you guys are showing up when I'm typically live, you're not going to be wondering where I actually am. And so just FYI, if you're on our newsletter list, then I will be providing you guys with up-to-date times as we go live in the future. So you can sign up to our newsletter. The information on how to do that is on our website. So if you just head over to vergepermaculture.ca, if you're not on a newsletter, you'll get a pop-up and you can opt in for our newsletter. There's a blog book that you get when you sign up for our newsletter, and we've had thousands of people download this blog book. It's our best writing over the last 10 years with tons of DIY articles, so you'll want to check that out. And then we have a new blog book we just released, actually. It's kind of been in the basement for a while, and we're releasing it for the first time. And it's essentially the first part of our permaculture design course. And so if you're on our newsletter list, you just got made aware of it, you were able to download it. If you didn't, we're gonna have a special opt-in page for that in a couple of weeks. And I'll make sure that I share it with YouTube. It's a brand new approach to, or how we look at permaculture, specifically how we design resilient homes, acreages, and farms for people, and how we teach other people to do that. So keep an eye out for that. Today I want to talk a little bit about a blog that I just wrote. I just released it today on Medium. The link is actually in the show notes below. You can take a look at it. And the blog is titled "The Energy Risk Nobody is Talking About." And this is something that I've talked a little bit about in former videos. I've also talked about it in former blogs, but I've never actually put all of my thoughts into one kind of area. And so essentially, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this because I'm an oil and gas engineer. Originally, I started in the oil and gas industry. And so, and as weird as this sounds, I actually find energy super interesting. And so the opening paragraph to the article is, in the movie The Sixth Sense, Haley Joel Osment claims that he can see dead people, that somehow he has a sense that most other humans don't have. And sometimes as a mechanical engineer, I feel the same way. However, I don't see dead people, I see gigajoules and kilowatts. So this blog is about one of the largest risks that I see as it pertains to energy and Western society that nobody is talking about. And it really kind of goes into the poor design that we've created as a society around the construction of homes and buildings, and specifically into the amount of energy embodied in natural gas, propane, and oil, and how these fuels will burn at literally thousands of degrees, yet we use them to heat our homes to 21 degrees Celsius, which is a complete, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's like cutting butter with a chainsaw. That's the only analogy that I can really give to it. When you have a fuel that burns at almost 2000 degrees Celsius and you're using it to heat a house to 21 degrees Celsius, all sorts of weird things happen. And one of them is that you end up with architects and engineers that don't know where south is. Just by placing your house towards south will reduce your energy consumption by up to 50%. Tim E says, I see gigawatts in dead people. Too bad we sequester all of our bioaccumulated energy 6 feet under. Totally. And so the The premise of it is that because we use fuels like natural gas, propane, and heating oil to heat our house, it allows us to design homes that are completely inadequate for the climates that we live within. And in the event that there's some sort of a disruption with these energy sources, which is hard to fathom sometimes because we live in such a crazy abundant world right now. But it's not actually that hard to imagine if you actually have some understanding of how the industry functions. And so my argument is that the myth that is shale gas is a myth. Yes, there's a lot of it out there, but the thing that very few people talk about is the hyperbolic decline curve, which I talk about in this blog. And before your eyes glaze over, when I start using complex mathematical terms like hyperbolic decline curve, all it basically means is that the gas comes on really quick and then it comes off really quick as well. And so the only way you can keep these gas wells operating is to constantly be fracking them. And so the problem with fracking it is that fracking takes enormous amounts of energy. So you have to put a huge amounts of energy in to a very small amount of energy that you get back out. And so Saudi Arabia oil 50 years ago was putting out about 100 barrels of oil for every barrel that they invested into the exploration and development of a well. Oil sands in northern Alberta is something like 11 units out to 10 units in. And I don't think that accounts for reclamation on the back end. And I have not read recently any of the energy return on energy invested on tight shale gas, but I know it's not great. So the other kind of interesting fragility that we find ourselves in with regards to natural gas is the fact that natural gas right now is kind of viewed as a waste product. Most natural gas companies are extracting natural gas for the light ends. And so they'll go after the diluent, the liquids, the natural gas liquids as they're referred to, so that they can actually send those up to places like the oil sands to dilute the oil out of the sand so that it's movable. And that the value of those light ends far exceeds the value of the natural gas. And so natural gas is kind of viewed as a waste product, which is why it's so cheap. And yet we all depend on it, and our houses will not function. Most houses in Canada will not function without cheap and abundant natural gas. And so in the event that the diluent becomes worth less, or natural gas is worth so little that it doesn't make economic sense for these companies to produce it. And I mean, I don't know what scenario would make that possible. I think that's one of the brilliant pieces of Nassim Taleb's work in his book, The Black Swan. All we can hope to do, the best that we can do, is identify fragilities. We can never predict what will end up causing the fragility to become volatile and break and cause problems. And so I can look at the home heating situation and then look at how we heat our homes, and then look at the oil and gas industry and say, wow, like we are so it relies on a whole bunch of for-profit companies to stay in business. And it requires a functional financial system. I mean, there's so many things that our natural gas infrastructure depends on that most people never even think about. And so, and the real issue here, I think, with regards to natural gas, heating oil, and propane, specifically with home heating, is that repairing the home heating infrastructure or changing the way that houses interact with thermal energy is a 50 to 75 year problem. So if we wanted to change the infrastructure, all of the housing stock, it's a 50 to 75 year problem. And so depending on who you read and what geologists you believe, there may not be 50 to 75 years of natural gas available to keep these crappy houses warm in the wintertime. And so this is the kind of the risk and the fragility that I think very few people are talking about. It's a massive problem. It's also an enormous opportunity. The people that get it, are already starting to make changes within their own life. The other interesting thing is that I get a lot of clients talking about how they'll just, change their gas or their oil or their propane infrastructure over to wood. And I personally am a fan of biomass heating. However, when you look at most cordwood, it is completely drenched in oil. And what I mean by that is that it took oil to cut the tree down. It probably took oil to plant the tree in the first place. It takes oil to drive the tree somewhere to be processed. It takes oil to split it, and it takes oil to bring it to wherever it's going to end up sitting. Now, if you are saying that you cut trees down with an axe and you split it with an axe and you haul it with a horse and an axe, awesome. You're a very rare individual. And if you do all of that because you have direct feedback with your muscles, you probably have an incentive to make sure that your house burns the least amount of wood possible. Most people are completely blind to the amount of energy embodied in oil because it does so much work for us. So Andrew Nikiforuk in his book, The Energy of Slaves, stated that the average barrel of oil has 25,000 hours of man labor in it. So, literally, if you take the peak oil price of $147 and you divide it by 25,000 hours, we're talking about fractions of a cent to deploy labor in the form of machines that use oil. So heating with wood is not just an option if you're trying to insure yourself against energy disruptions. I think it can be an option if you've made a really energy efficient house and you've got proper, wood coppicing on your property. You're tying in your septic system or the effluent from your septic system into a willow coppice that will grow willow quickly, and you've made your house super energy efficient. I think that's potentially an option. If you're not doing that and the whole world switches over to burning wood for heat, we've got about 5 years of wood in the world before we burn all the trees down. So another thing that makes me struggle to sleep at night is that concept of where is all this wood going to come from if we suddenly don't have fossil fuels. So something to think about is how much wood do you use per year if you're currently using wood, and could you actually contribute enough wood by hand in the event that you had to? And that's kind of like, does it pass the hand split test? And that's really kind of the essence of whether or not wood heat is even sustainable or resilient for you. So homes in the cold portion of the Northern Hemisphere should be built with the following thermal design principles. So orient your home within 15 degrees to south, build an envelope that meets passive house standard, which we can do a future video about, optimize window placement and thus room placement based on heat loss and gain, maximize the volume, minimize the external surface area to reduce heat loss, use breathable vapor permeable materials, add active renewable energies like photovoltaic, solar thermal, and even wind power, add wood heat once the home is efficient as possible. And then homes in northern climates that exist should be retrofitted with the following thermal design principles. So there's an enormous opportunity to actually retrofit homes. We shouldn't just plan on building new stuff all the time. So we want to be modeling our homes and understanding where the heat loss is actually going to occur, and then optimizing for insulation. We want to perform a deep energy retrofit. So that's going to be adding insulation, potentially vapor barriers, optimizing windows, changing windows. Add active renewable energies like solar thermal, solar photovoltaic, and then add wood heat as a backup. So when I was writing this blog, I had kind of a final insight that I want to leave with you guys before I close out for the day and I go have dinner with my family. The fragility that we feel deep down in our gut around our food, power, water, and thermal fuels is a byproduct of an over-reliance on centralized systems that have little to no feedback. These industrial suppliers of resources are driven by motives that differ from ours, and are at best of times, there are giant opaque walls that prevent us, the user, from seeing these motives. Our resilience and safety lies in decentralized solutions to these resources that we need to live full and healthy lives. They include properly built homes, renewable energy, harvesting of our own water, and growing of our own food. And most importantly, we need community to work through these issues together. So all the solutions, technology, knowledge, and I'll say that again. All of the solutions, technology, and knowledge exists right now. It just takes a few early adopters to get the changes underway, and for people to lead that charge, essentially. So hopefully you guys found that interesting. I'm going to close out for the evening, I'm just going to quickly look at the chat window to see if there's any questions. And while I'm doing that, I'll just say again that I will not be going live this Friday or next Wednesday evening or next Friday due to some courses that I'm teaching right now. If you are ever interested in learning more about our permaculture design courses, which is what I'm going to be teaching in the next couple of weeks, go over to our website and check out our permaculture design course. It's world renowned. I'm one of the only, I think I'm one of 2 engineers in the world that I'm aware of right now that teaches it, maybe 3, but definitely not very many. And so it's a very science-based permaculture design course that's specifically around helping you to design your resilient homemaker farm. Sorry, the words are just not coming at the end of the day today. Okay, so Simple Tech, everyone goes on about electric energy, solar, wind, tidal for appliances, lights, electronics, but here in Canada, we use 2 to 3 times more energy for heating than appliances and lighting. Yeah, absolutely. Simple Tech, it's not just energy in and out, it's the cost of energy in versus what you can sell the energy out for. If you can get free solar in and sell battery charge out. Yeah, I guess so. But still, we have to think about the energy returned on energy invested. That's important. Yeah, your point is you can be energy negative but cash flow positive. That's true, and that's fine for solar and batteries, but it's not fine for oil and gas. Timmy, my neighbor who works in the oil and gas industry points out that before we feel too self-righteous boycotting Alberta dirty oil, we should know that he has worked in oil-producing countries. Tim, so I totally agree, and I'm not talking about dirty oil here at all. In fact, I think oil is an amazing resource. I want to make sure that bias is really clear. I think it's incredible that we can fly at 30,000 feet and get halfway around the world in 8 hours. What I'm saying is that using fossil fuels to heat homes is ridiculous. That's what I'm saying. Use the natural gas, but let's use it to make plastics, to weld steel, to melt steel, make even electricity with it, but don't heat a home to 21 degrees Celsius with fossil fuel. That's what I'm saying. Simple Tech, biomass heating versus compost heating. The Jean Pan method is something worth serious consideration. Totally. Laura H, Timmy, mine is going into, I'm not sure what that's supposed to say. Simple Tech, what's cool is that Jean Pan composting heating method can use hay, just the grass on the side of the roads. Yep, and if you think about it, I mean, even grass is stored energy, right? So Tim says the sources of energy we use may be less relevant in the long run than what we use the energy for. There's a big difference between burning fuel for travel versus building regenerative systems. Totally, which is my point right now. I'm not saying let's not use fossil fuels. I'm saying let's use the appropriate energy for the appropriate use. Okay, B. Sharon, do you know anything about the potential for tapping energy from rivers by installing anchored river bottom turbines? Yeah, I mean, there's something called run-of-river turbines. There's also drag turbines. There's lots of different water, micro hydro systems out there, and there seems to be new ones coming onto the market all the time. What's great about hydro, if you can get permission to do it, is that the energy density of water is quite a bit higher than air. So because water has more density, it carries more energy in it, and so. And then usually a river flows 24/7. And so micro hydro tends to be a lower wattage, so a lower number of joules per second. However, it's constant. And so typically a small micro hydro system will continuously trickle charge a battery system. And then the battery system is what feeds an inverter, which then powers your loads in your house. Urban Garden, I'd like to try and reverse engineer these ideas for the tropics. Totally. Okay, folks, so thanks so much for signing in. It's just a really short session on YouTube. I've got a wonderful dinner upstairs and 2 little children that are excited to see me at the end of the day here. So if you found this useful, hit the like button. If you want to read more about this article, check out the article link in the show notes below. And if you think other people would find this video interesting, by all means, feel free to share this on social media. It always helps the channel. Okay, folks, have a great weekend. I will not be seeing you tomorrow because I'm at a business fair with my son, helping him to sell organic ketchup. It's his first business. Pretty excited about it. Okay, talk to you guys soon. We'll see you guys real soon. Thanks, Jordan. We'll look for your email later tonight. Okay. Adios.